Previously on the Uff Da Files.
The Val Johnson incident of 1979 may be the most dramatic UFO encounter tied to the North Star State, but in the decades since then, the skies have been anything but quiet. Every year brings new sightings, from mysterious holes in the ice of frozen lakes to flying jellyfish to, yes, another soup can creature. In this final installment of the Uff Da Files, we'll hear thrilling testimony from people who have seen things, take a closer look at a few of the stories as featured in the press and submitted to the National UFO Reporting Center and Minnesota Mutual UFO Network, MUFON, consider what recent disclosures by the U.S. government might suggest about future close encounters of the Minnesota kind, and why, as the Wall Street Journal says, there's never been a better time to believe in aliens than right now. First, some stats. According to the website UFOsightings.usa.com, there have been 2,061 reported UFO sightings in Minnesota between 1969 and 2023, and Minnesota ranks 23rd in number of reports among the 50 states. The Axios website says we have 33.5 sightings per 100,000 residents, which is slightly below the national average of 34.3. But I know that can't be right, because Garrison Keillor says we're all above average. So there.
Me and my brother were coming home from a night of fishing at Island Lake just south of Langley. We took the back way home because the lights on the boat trailer didn't work and I knew nobody'd be on the gravel county roads. About 3 or 4 miles from home, I was driving past a friend's farm. I seen a light beam coming from atop the trees in the pasture, shining to the ground. I slowed down and stopped on the county road, rolled down the window and put my head out to look at the object. It was hovering, I guess, about a half a mile or so from the road. It definitely was looking for something in the pasture. There was no sound. While I was watching the object, it was over the pasture 800 yards away, then whoosh, over to the truck in less than a second. I never seen it move other than it was there, and now it's over me, hovering. It was a disc-like craft with lights around the edges, just hovering 30 or 40 feet above us. About that time, it went from right above our head, and I would like to say flew, but I never seen it move. It just went from being over us, and then it was to the north about 3/4 of a mile away, over another one of my friend's pig barn. Blink of an eye, that's how fast it moved. About that time, my brother, who was 14 at the time, was freaking out. I put the truck in gear because, like him, I had seen enough. We had 3 or 4 miles to get to our small farm site. I was driving about 35 to 45 miles an hour. I wanted to just floor it, but I knew that wasn't going to do anything but put us in the ditch. It paralleled us the as we parked the pickup and ran to the house. It shot straight up in the night sky and it was gone. I now make sure the trailer lights work since then.
One night in August 1982 in Little Falls, Minnesota, a carload of teenagers were cruising the back roads just for something to do. Entering a local graveyard, as you do, the group began seeing glowing white and red lights. Upon closer examination, they spied something the size and shape of a soup can hovering about 3 feet off the ground, glowing candy apple red. They reported that it traveled from 0 to fast, instantly and silently. In June 1984, an unidentified man had what he described as a close encounter of the 5th kind, which our friends at Wikipedia define as human-initiated contact with extraterrestrial life forms or advanced interstellar civilizations claiming direct communication between aliens and humans, while on a canoe trip in the Boundary Waters canoe area, the same vast wilderness area those Canadian trappers had their encounter back in 1972. While preparing to do some evening fishing, he observed a bluish object the color of an RC Cola can, oddly specific, shaped like a faceted diamond, rapidly descending toward him at a 45-degree angle. The witness, who declared himself to be a good judge of speed because he was a skydiver, motorcyclist, race car driver, and pilot, estimated it was traveling at 200 miles per hour. It passed over him and disappeared behind the trees. Shortly thereafter, he heard something approaching him through the woods. He described the entity who emerged from the trees as a blonde Nordic, with whom he proceeded to have an hour-long telepathic conversation. He did not share the substance of this interchange, but did note that there was no physical examination. The witness emphasized he was sober, not tired, not subject to hallucinations, and has a high IQ. Sonia hennes tut.
I'd left work about 8 p.m. I had to stop over to my parents' house and decided to take a shortcut, a winding dirt road through 7 miles of uninhabited state land. The night was overcast, so there were no stars or moon visible. I came around a sharp bend and saw an object hovering above the treetops straight ahead. Well, at first I was confused. It didn't make sense what I was seeing. I stopped the car and put it in park and rolled down my window. I heard absolutely nothing. The craft was about 50 feet down the road from me. It had 4 rows of orange or amber lights, and it had a whitish green mist around the bottom of the craft that lit up the branches of the trees it was hovering over. Well, about this time, I completely freaked out. I threw the car into drive and gunned it. I went straight towards the craft and hoped to hell it wouldn't start following me or shine a light on my car. God, it was terrifying. When I got just about under it, I had to brake to make the corner, and I remember glancing up. I don't recall exactly what I saw, but I do remember a small, bright, neon green light somewhere on the bottom of the craft. I drove like a bat out of hell until I got to my parents' house. I could hardly walk into the house, my knees were so weak. As soon as I saw my mom, I started bawling like a baby.
On January 21st, 1999, something landed in tiny Atwater in Kandiyohi County, about 80 miles west of the Twin Cities. Residents heard something like a sonic boom, and when 85-year-old Louisa Rhodey looked out her window the next morning and saw a star-shaped hole in the ice of Tad Lake, she made a call to the local authorities. Soon the area was swamped with curious citizens, scientific experts, and media from far and wide, seeking to solve the mystery of what caused a 3-foot hole through 18 inches of ice in the dark of night. A geology prof and geoscience prof from Bemidji State University, Go Beavers, made the trek south to examine the anomaly. A team of divers wriggled under the ice in 2 feet of really cold water, digging in the muck beneath the hole. One diver triumphantly emerged with the round, domed object in his fist about the size of a saucer. So-called experts on the scene identified it as a turtle. But can we trust them? No word on whether they were dressed in black, but I have my suspicions. The divers also came up with the top of a paint can, presumably the mothership to the Long Prairie Candoroids, and a metal drip pan from an old stove. Louisa Rhodey, the elderly, self-confessed science fiction fan who reported the hole, was disappointed that they didn't find one of those little spaceships, but remained confident that the going theory, gases underneath the ice pushing upward to create the hole, was horse feathers. Gases couldn't break through 18 inches of ice, she averred. She worried that people would be mad at her for creating a fuss, but the local mayor, no doubt glad of the publicity for his little burg, reassured her. Giving the old metal bowl a good once-over, he declared, "That looks like part of a flying saucer to me. It's gotta be," he stated. "Something definitely went through the ice. That's our story, and we're sticking to it."
The ship was about the length of the football field. It was gray with lights all around it, and in the middle of the ship there was a big circle that looked like it opened up. It didn't do nothing but hover above the school about 50 feet, but it got real dark and cold when they were visiting. The ship had a kind of haze around the outer limits of it. Nothing too extreme happened, but the clocks were all behind approximately 5 minutes or so, And when it was above us, plonk, plonk, and the lights on the cars kept flashing on and off. You should have seen it.
On August 19, 2004, thousands of Twin City residents craned their necks to the sky for several hours during the day when a reflective object at very high altitude appeared to hover over the metro area. Originally thought to be a weather balloon, those General Mills guys up to something again? It was later confirmed that there were no scheduled balloon launches on that day. Some people who tried to get a closer look with high-powered binoculars and telescopes reported it appeared to be a sloped rectangular shape with a kind of shimmer around it, like heat rising from hot asphalt. Others described it as teardrop-shaped. The incident was covered widely in local print and broadcast media, but no conclusions were drawn.
Last night around midnight, I was watching TV when all of a sudden I lost all antenna reception and got nothing but static. Out of the corner of my eye, I thought I saw a flash of light coming from my window. Then I heard a wild bang that sounded like it came from the back of the house. Scared the bejesus out of me. Whatever it was, I wasn't going back there without a shotgun. I ran to my cell phone and attempted to call the sheriff, but my phone was dead. I grabbed my shotgun loaded with deer slugs and made my way to the back of the house with my back up against the wall of the house. I looked around and saw nothing. I was headed back towards the house and for no reason looked up. And holy crap, about 300 feet above the house, what looked like a big little aircraft was just sitting there, motionless. I ran away from the house towards a large tree about 100 feet away. Just stood there behind the tree looking at this thing. It had no lights on it. It looked real intimidating. I was going to take a pot shot at it, but I decided not to. Anywho, it looked like a large jet with no fuselage. It finally went slowly straight up and disappeared. I stayed behind the tree a while to make sure it wasn't coming back.
In April 2010, a Minneapolitan stepped outside with his dog about 10:30 p.m. when a low-flying object swooped overhead and all the neighborhood dogs started barking their heads off. Dogs can always tell. Then an object like an upside-down walk noiselessly rose up over the trees to a height of about 50 feet. It had a formation of white lights on the bottom and 4 red lights in each corner. The witness observed it as it moved slowly over a nearby highway and out of sight. Afterwards, the observer noted their hands had a burning smell to them and their fingers tingled. On August 9, 2015, Twin Cities police dispatch units fielded a flurry of calls from residents in the southwest suburbs about a large circular object hovering motionless in the sky. The object appeared as a perfect circle of lights, glowing with a slightly fuzzy, almost mystical appearance. Not surprising, since this sighting was quickly identified as being a light display from the Mystic Lake Casino in Prior Lake. Oops.
I was traveling south on Highway 102 on my way to Fertile, Minnesota. As soon as I came to the intersection to turn to Highway 41, I seen an object in the distance in the middle of the highway about 7 miles from me. The object had 2 bright orb-style lights that were very large. As I approached the object, the top of it started changing colors, kind of like a jellyfish. I then started to get very close to the object and realized the light did not make any reflection, so iridescent. I proceeded to drive under the object at about 30 miles an hour. As I passed under it, I could see the outline of the mass of the craft. This was a very large UFO that did not make any noise. After I passed it on the highway, it disappeared. The next few days, I was extremely ill and could not hold any food down. This resulted in me losing 12 pounds.
Beats Ozempic, I guess. At just about 4 a.m. on June 16, 2019, a central Minnesota resident was on the way to work in St. Cloud when, while stopped at an intersection, they observed a bright orange light to the east side of the moon. Observing as closely as possible while driving, the witness later reported a giant, huge, massive craft. It appeared to be more square than rectangle and had 4 very distinct bright orange lights under the craft. It hovered approximately 200 yards above the tree line and very clearly lit up the tree line and field. It was completely silent and was not moving. The driver floored it all the rest of the way to work. The witness described it as like a skyscraper put into a square with orange lights on the bottom. Yeah, that would encourage you to put the pedal to the metal, all right.
With more than 3/4 of a century between us and the start of the modern UFO era, and, more importantly, closing in on 60 years since her own Minnesota birth coincided with the most reported U.S. sightings in history, per Reader's Digest, see Episode 1. What have we learned? What do we know? And where are we now?
Since 2017, when the New York Times published leaked videos and whistleblower testimony about the military's frequent interactions with what they're now calling UAPs, unidentified anomalous phenomena, coincidentally the same name I give for what I step in on the way to the bathroom in the middle of the night after my cats have hawked up a hairball, new information, disinformation, conspiracy theories, accusations of cover-ups, and yes, new UFO/UAP sightings have increased faster than a candy apple soup can on a lonely country road. Over the decades, the shapes and sizes of the craft have morphed, from the bloated blimps of the 1890s to the shiny, albeit not terribly aerodynamic, discs of the 40s and 50s, V-shapes and flying wings of the 1960s and 70s, giant geometric shapes of the 80s and 90s, to metallic orbs of the early aughts, to the current crop of zippy little buggers called Tic Tacs. This is an appropriate name, since the Italian company that makes the itty-bitty breath mints, Ferraro, is from the same country that gave us the Ferrari. So you better believe these things are sleek and speedy. In 2020, then CIA Director John Brennan made the government's stance on extraterrestrial activity crystal clear when he said, "Some of the phenomena we're going to be seeing continues to be unexplained and might, in fact, be some type of phenomenon that is the result of something that we don't yet understand and that could involve some type of activity that some might say constitutes a different form of life." Well, that's clear as mud. On July 27, 2023, a hearing took place in Washington, D.C. of the House Oversight Committee's National Security Subcommittee, titled Unidentified Anomalous Phenomena, Implications on National Security, Public Safety, and Government Transparency. It featured testimony from 3 military veterans, including a former member of the Pentagon's UAP task force turned whistleblower, retired Major David Grush, who claimed the government has been reverse engineering spaceships for decades and that the U.S. is in possession of non-human biologics recovered from crash UFOs. Uff Da! Since then, the demand for full disclosure has been ramping up in the halls of Congress and in scientific think tanks like r/Strange Earth. Finally, in March 2024, the Pentagon's All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, yes, that's a thing, bowed to pressure and issued its findings. Ain't nothing up there. Ain't nothing up there that we didn't make ourselves. It declared that most UFO sightings over the past 77 years have been natural phenomena or secret military spy planes and such like. Now, many people, pointing to the vast number of weird phenomena reported worldwide over decades and decades, call the government's report bull hockey. But me? I think it's all true, and I'll tell you why. I searched through the National UFO Reporting Center's archives of 148,739 reports. And do you know how many of them occurred on my birthday? 0 many. Zippo, nada, bupkis. In fact, not only are there no reports of UFOs on the day of my birthday in the year of my birth, there are no reports occurring on the date of my birth in any year, and these records go back to freaking 1561. That's right. Nowhere in Minnesota, nowhere in the world has there ever been a UFO sighting on my birthday. And that Reader's Digest article was a whole lot of hooey. In fact, I might just sue the company that publishes Reader's Digest for mental anguish and terminal mortification because, wait a minute, what is that? Could it be? Is it possible that's the mothership? My mothership? Oh, hey, wait, don't go. This world is so crazy and scary. Just take me with you. Please take me with you. Just a second.